Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the NAAHL Policy and Practice Conference, hosted by the National Association of Affordable Housing Lenders here in DC. It's really great to be here. My name is Joy Hoffmann. I'm with Morgan Stanley, and I'm the chair of this conference and the conference committee and a member of NAAHL. I want to thank our generous sponsors, especially Citi, for leading the sponsorship for this conference. I don't know if there's anybody from Citi in the room. Thank you very much. It's really great. Hey, Norm. It's really great to be here today at what is the last event for us of the year, for a year that seems to me like it went something like January, February, September, December. I don't know. And it's been very fast and full. And we're excited about having this really, really important conversation with you here today. The NAAHL members have been hard at work in their own areas, making meaningful investments and loans into projects that are making the difference in lives of many low-income people across the country, and we don't need to emphasize how much affordable housing is a crisis in each and every state. And so the work that we do, we face many, many challenges, but it is so critically important for the people that are the end recipients of the work that you are all doing, and we thank you so much. That is what this work is all about. Cannot forget the families who benefit, the people who benefit, and how important it is to move forward in the most positive way, if possible. There have been a lot of challenges this year. We're facing a whole new political chapter over the next few years, and we are really hoping to find opportunities and hope inside of some changes that are going to happen in Washington over the next month, actually. But we really are hopeful that there are things that we can do at a bipartisan level, because it's really hard to argue that this should be a partisan issue and that people don't deserve safe, decent, affordable housing across this country. That's why it's really so important that we're together today. We planned this meeting not knowing what the outcome would be on November 5th, and tried to bring to you a lot of different experts in the field and thinkers about this work that now know what the future is for at least the next couple of years and are going to think positively, proactively, hopefully about the next couple of months. NAAHL really is an honest broker of developing and advancing smart policies that can really make a difference in the lives of many. We're really committed to economic mobility and neighborhood stabilization. And we're going to continue to play that role of honest broker as neutrally as possible to make the most progress as possible over the next couple of years. You might recall that as we stood here last year, we said goodbye to a long-standing and well-revered and loved, and I think he's in the room, CEO of NAAHL, Buzz Roberts. And we were so sorry to say goodbye to Buzz, and also really hopeful, because that's what we do, in welcoming our new CEO, who's been on the job for a year. And I know to many of us has exceeded our expectations. It's been a pleasure. It's never easy to replace somebody, a long-standing, successful CEO and just a human being like Buzz Roberts. But in Sarah Brundage, we found really the perfect complement and the next chapter. And it's been a pleasure to get to know her and to approach this work and to think about it a little bit through a different lens. And it is my pleasure to welcome Sarah Brundage, our new CEO of NAAHL, to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Joy. Thank you to our full board, NAAHL's members, our 2024 sponsors, and all of the partners I see across this room. Welcome to the 2024 NAAHL and CCL Policy and Practice Conference. As I've been preparing for my first Policy and Practice Conference, I really appreciate NAAHL's commitment to both policy and practice. And in today's panels, we will all benefit from that blend of policy and practitioner expertise that reflects NAAHL's membership. But as I've been reflecting, there's another P alongside policy and practice that really defines NAAHL, and that is partnerships. It has already been a humbling and rewarding first 11 months, not almost 12, joining NAAHL, and I've just been blown away by the dedication, the expertise, the kindness, and the collaboration of the NAAHL family. And it's really clear to me that at its core, NAAHL is an alliance. It's a set of partnerships, and it was made for this moment. The need for more affordable housing supply for renters and homeowners is a top issue in every community, and voters and elected officials are looking for solutions, and we know them. In this room, we know them. And regardless of the ever-changing political landscape, NAAHL will remain, as Joy said, the honest broker, that united voice of lenders and investors who will be the ones to produce and preserve the affordable housing supply that urban, rural, suburban, and tribal communities alike so desperately need. As we look to 2025 and beyond, we will be bold, strategic, collaborative, innovative, resourceful, and perhaps most importantly, another good P word, persistent. The communities we serve deserve nothing less from those of us who have the privilege of representing them or advocating on their behalf. And so with that, thank you again to everyone in this room. While this is the end of the year in many ways, this is the kickoff of our next chapter together. And so now I have the pleasure, I believe Representative Kelly is arriving any minute. We will turn the stage over momentarily to NAAHL board member Nikki Holsopple, who will introduce our morning keynote speaker. So just bear with us 1 minute, and I think we'll get going. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Nikki Holsopple, and I am a managing director and the CRA officer at JPMorgan Chase. At JPMorgan Chase, we are leveraging our philanthropic dollars, business practices, and policy expertise to attack the housing crisis in the United States. The housing crisis is complex and requires multifaceted solution, which is why our strategy aims to combat both the supply and the demand side of all the constraints. It is my pleasure today to introduce our keynote speaker, Congressman Mike Kelly from Pennsylvania's 16th District. Congressman Kelly shares the strong interest with us in finding solutions to the housing crisis. As chairman of both the Ways and Means Subcommittee on Tax and Community Development Tax Team, he has supported using tax programs that create affordable housing while also investing in families and neighborhoods. Congressman Kelly has been a vocal supporter for many of NAAHL's tax programs. He is co-leading the bipartisan Neighborhood Homes Investment Act, which will increase the supply of affordable owner-occupied housing. He is also co-sponsoring a bill to expand and strengthen low-income housing tax credits. NAAHL looks forward to working with you in supporting these efforts to ensure passage of these bills in the forthcoming tax package. Congressman, on behalf of NAAHL and its members, we thank you for all of your efforts. And with that, please join me in welcoming Congressman Kelly.
Thank you. In the position I'm in right now, not a lot of people clap for you. So I think we went through the roughest part of the time that I've been here. This last year, actually 18 months of this constant election, and then my amount of negative things kept coming out. My wife, when I get home, she said, well, I want to watch Fox? I said, no, we're not going to. Well, then I'm going to look at CNN. And I said, no, we're not looking at anything. She said, well, how are you going to keep up with what's going on? I said, I think what I'm going to do is just look at policy and do it quietly. I don't need to see people spending a ton of money on TV with negative ads, because the country doesn't need that right now. So, hey, listen, being with you is really great. Now, I don't know where Elise is, but people always talk about things that get done in Congress. I think you know it's the same thing. I know back home in the dealership, it's not the dealer who has to be successful. It's the people he or she hires to do work with people face to face that make the difference, whether you're successful or not successful, and you've got to know what you're doing. So for me, Elise, where are you? I can't see you. She is incredible. And so I get credit for a lot of things that staff does. And I think that in our lives, we're looking at that. The reason I bring it up now is because this time of the year, it's time for us to really be cheerful and be looking ahead. What you've all been through is difficult. I got to tell you, I really believe that nobody should serve in a public office unless they've worked through the private sector. I know in my situation, my family started our business in 1953 with a little Chevrolet dealership in a small town called Verona, which is in East Pittsburgh. We moved to Butler in 1957. It was a Chevrolet Cadillac dealership, and I bought it from my dad. My mother had passed. I bought it from my dad in the late 90s. But he was at the store every day with me. He was so used to coming to work that he couldn't stay away from it. And what he always told me, he said, first of all, I want a Kelly's name on the countersign of every check that goes out of here. And I want to always check accounts receivable to see where we are, because that's the lifeline that we need. So why do I bring that up? What does that have to do with anything? Everything. Everything. And at least on the way over, we're facing a real challenge right now in the automobile industry, because as you know, the last couple of years were incredible when it came to what people were willing to pay for a car or truck. Now, I just want to share this with you because it's so different. It used to be people would come into the dealership and they say, I'm going to look at 5 different stores, and whoever is the lowest price is where I'm going to buy. And my answer to them was, so are we your first store or your 5th store? Because if we're your first store, I know I'm never going to see you again. But if I'm the 5th, come back. I'll look at everybody else, what they've said, and I guarantee you we'll beat that price. Now, but 95% of what we sell is on time. So you have to have a great relationship with lenders, because that's the key of how does it move forward. The reason I brought up the automobile industry is because over the last couple of years, this idea that I have to have whatever it is that's on the shelf, and I'm willing to pay $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever I have to pay over a sticker. For me, that was so different, because people would talk to me, I'm willing to give you what you paid for the car. I'll pay invoice, but not a penny more. It changed so rapidly, and now it's changed back again. Now, what does that mean to people who bought cars during the pandemic? For the most part, they're upside down. They owe more on whatever it is that they bought than it's worth. And so when you look at people with negative equity, you say, you know what, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. It's going to be hard for us to get you bought. Now, I use terms like that, and people say, I don't know what that means. We have like 5 different lenders that we work with. It's important to people to establish relationships like that, because it's based on your past performance and what did you bring for them to look at, where am I going to invest? Investing by lenders is the key to our whole economy. Unfortunately, in the automobile business now, we have so many people with negative equity. You know what else? The cost of borrowing money went up dramatically. So they're caught in this seesaw, and too often we're the bearer of bad news. And I've tried to tell people, and sometimes they get upset with us, you know, maybe not is the right time to buy. I mean, you've supported us through great years and through thin years. I've almost gone broke a couple of times. And the reason I bring that up, I really do believe, and I said earlier, unless you've gone through the private sector, you should not be serving in public office, because you have absolutely no idea how difficult it is for people. So almost going broke a couple of times really wakes you up. And we never, in the years since 1953 till right now, we have never missed a payday for our team. There are times I never took a paycheck. There were times that we really cut things as short as we can. And the reason I keep bringing this up is because, you know, when somebody's trying to get a home, who do they rely on? It has to be the lenders. And they have to be able to perform. They have to put, listen, this is who I am. This is who I've been. This is the story on me, and am I qualified? Can you help me buy something? So I have all kind of notes and stuff, and at least put these things together. And as I started looking through it, it's so much like what I've done my whole life. It's so much like what I've done. If I could take you to Butler, Pennsylvania, and show the difference between the Butler I grew up in and the Butler that exists today. We were a town of 31,000. We had Armco Steel, which employed about 5,000 people. We had Pullman Standard, who built covered hoppers, which is very important to the industry at the time. There were 5,000 jobs there. Pullman Standard is gone. It's now been turned into a shopping center that's failing. Armco became AK, which is Armco Kawasaki, which then became Cleveland Cliffs. And so the owners have changed over the years. The employment now is about $1,700, or I'm sorry, 1,700 people working there. So it's changed dramatically. So you may ask yourself, look, what does that have to do with anything? People have to live someplace. We have, I think, a kind of an iconic photo that I asked if we could do it, if we'd put it up. If you have the availability to do, would you put it up? And I think it's going to be on the screens. That is E.T. So iconic. The one thing that most people remember about E.T., and if you see it now, he's on a bicycle, he's going up over the moon, and he's pointing, and what does he keep saying? Home, home, home. And so people say, yeah, are you trying to be cute? I said, no, I'm not trying to be cute. It is truly iconic, and it truly is the basis for a strong society. The most important thing for a family is to be able to have a home. To be in a home that they can afford, a home that is livable, a home that establishes a center for them. I look now at where we are, and I would say the greatest problem we have right now in America is we've destroyed the nuclear family. We've come up with policies that are fine as long as you're not a couple trying to raise children. So we have people in and out of children's lives. There's no stability. There's no stability. So I think what you're doing, and I look at it, and I look at my hometown. If you were to go with me to my hometown, because I've lived in the same house when my wife and I got married in '73, we're in the same home. It's not the same neighborhood. It's not the same neighborhood. People have been in and out, and people have done things, and a lot of times those single-family homes now become multi-family homes. But like E.T., people are still searching for home. They need to go home. And the only way you can get there is by developing policy that makes it possible for them to get there. It should not be impossible for a family to have a home. It should not be difficult for a family to have a home. It should not be difficult to raise children in the United States of America. It should not be difficult to educate them, to get them ready for the future. It just shouldn't be possible and impossible. And so I look at this all the time, and I will go back to what I've done for a living. One of the hardest things is for people who want to get a new car or a new truck, but they're trading, there's so much negative equity. So that has to get refinanced, right? And it's not the same rate as it used to be. And sometimes it's just overwhelming. In all the stuff that we put together and the people that I'm working with right now, I think there's an understanding. It's not a Republican issue or a Democrat issue. It's just flat out math. That's all it is, it's math. So the bill we have over 100 co-sponsors, and people said, well, you can't do that anymore. I said, well, I don't know why you would say that. The business I'm in now and the people I work with, John Larson and I can do anything together. I think this is where we have to get him, because if we don't have bipartisan support on these things, and I think that it's changed so much. You know, the goal usually is to make the other side look bad. And if you can do that, there's people that walk out of there, and I see people in our party that can't wait to get to the front steps of the Capitol to tell everybody how bad it is, how bad it is, how we can't work together anymore. And I said, take that we out and just put me. I can't work together with anybody anymore. I will just tell you from my whole life experience, it has been the ability to work with other people to get to a common goal that makes us successful. Now, part of the district I serve in is Erie, Pennsylvania. Zip code 16501 is the poorest zip code in America. And it's hard for me to go to Erie and look at that town and know what it was been forever and look at where it is today. I got to tell you, through policy, Erie is coming back to life. Through policy, neighborhoods that people would say, I can't believe this is where I grew up. I mean, I know I left here to go to college and then I found a job someplace else, but this is not my hometown anymore. It's changed dramatically. So going back, I said earlier, it's about the math. It's about what is it that we can do with policy to encourage people to be able to go out and borrow money to buy a home, to raise your children in a home, to keep the nuclear family together and make sure that they know there's always a place for them to come home. So this time of the year is amazing because even when in Butler, I see plates from all over the country, and they're people that grew up in Butler but have not been home for a long time, but they're home for Thanksgiving, they're home for Christmas, they're home, and too often it's to say goodbye to somebody who they grew up with, but a parent or grandparent, somebody else has passed. But it's always that anchor. It's always that fact that there was a home that they grew up in. There is a neighborhood that's stable. There is the ability to wake up every morning in your bed and know that you can go off to school or work or whatever it is and then come home and enjoy having dinner together as a family. I don't think that the country can exist anymore if we don't recreate the nuclear family. And people were relying too much on a government program that's never guaranteed. And that's how they get through life. And too often, it's hard. If you're married, it's harder to get help. So everything that we're looking at right now, and the people that I work with, and believe me, I don't identify as being red or being blue. I don't identify as, I'm a real conservative Republican, and they're a real liberal Democrat. What we look for all the time are how many people are on the same page about whom it is that you serve. I serve 750,000 people. They don't all vote for me. In fact, about half of them aren't even registered to vote. But policy is driven by people who are elected and go into office. Resumes are incredibly important. In my life, and a friend of mine told me this, I really don't believe that anybody should serve in public office, and I said this earlier, unless you got fired once or worked on commission only. You're the one that determines the paycheck. You're the one that determines what I can bring home. You're the one that has to do that. So unless you've been through that, I mean, if you've never lost your job, it doesn't make any sense to you. So it's like, I don't get it. I don't know what people are so uptight about. I said, have you ever been laid off? Have you ever not been able to pay your utility bill? Have you never been able? It's going through that experience. Resumes are incredibly important. And what you do is you understand where the market is. And you understand that we have to have help. We have to be able to restore in America a strong nuclear family. We have to have neighborhoods that people are proud to live in. We have to have the ability to go to lenders and borrow money that help us to get to that point. So when I said earlier it's about the math, it's always going to be about the math. And going forward, so what is it that we've tried to do? We tried to pull together the Neighborhood Improvement Act, right? And I wish that we can actually someday walk through Erie. I can show you the before and after. I can show you when there's no support, and neighborhoods are falling apart, and homes are falling apart, and families are falling apart. And I can show you the now, where we've changed that. We've changed it completely. And once you find a home, most people are proud of what they have, so the grass is cut, right? There's not broken windows. There's not doors coming off the hinges. There's not front porches that you can't step on because they're falling apart. It is a pride in ownership, pride in home, pride in being able to take care of your family, no matter what your income level is. That's the low-income housing. And that is the thing that's so difficult. It's so difficult. And I can't imagine as a father or a grandfather waking up in the morning and say, there's nothing I can do today that's going to help one of my children or one of my grandchildren. But we can do it through policy here. We can do it through policy. We can encourage people to invest. We can encourage people to lend. We can encourage people to look for a brighter day because of policy. And it doesn't have to be Republican. It doesn't have to be Democrat. It just has to be American policy. So everything that you all do, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. It's a difficult thing to do. In our business, we always talk about somebody comes in, wants to buy a car or truck, and the end question is, well, can you get them bought? And somebody said, what does that mean? I said, well, we have to go to lenders, and we rely on lenders to lend money to whoever it is that we're working with, and will they buy Will they buy that contract? Will they invest in that contract? Will they be able to work with those people? So I think that too often we get so wrapped around the axle on things that are really worthless conversation. If you're not working on something that's going to improve, please don't start talking about things that are going to destroy. I am so tired of sitting in a room with 435 people who think that they have the most important vote and don't understand that you represent 750,000 people. They're relying on you to represent them, not yourself, not because you raise a lot of money digitally and go out and if the only thing you can talk about, do you know how much money I raised? Do you know how much money I raised? And it's like, that's not why you come here, because it's truly not about you. It's not about you. And if it is about you, find a business where that's where you can succeed, because it's about them. It's about those 750,000 people you represent. This housing thing is one of the things. My father grew up, was one of 7 in Pittsburgh, went through the Depression, went through World War II, came back home. He started our business with absolutely nothing but friends who helped him buy a dealership. At the time, he was able to borrow $10,000. And people would say, oh, you must be kidding. You can't even find a nice used car for $10,000. He found a dealership. He found a dealership 7 days a week. I used to go with him down to the railroads. My grandfather worked on the railroads. The biggest pride he had is when his son, George, would come to the railroad, take the cars off the flat cars, take them home. Everything that my dad did was in the basement of our home. He's the one that prepped cars. He's the one that, you know, the big aftermarket thing? Seat covers. My dad, and I could never figure it out. I used to watch him work with this big sewing machine and cutting things into making seat covers for cars. And so I think that now, looking back, a lot of the lessons that I learned, I didn't know at the time I was learning a lesson. And it's really important to go to the past to find out what the future needs or what went wrong in the past. But getting down to what we're talking about today, do you know what you're able to do to rebuild the American family, to rebuild towns, and more important, pride in being able to live in a home that whomever is your partner are able to raise children in a home that they know they can come home to every day. They can grow up in a really strong situation. But it all then comes down to how do we access the funding that we need. What we're trying to do in Congress right now, and with the colleagues that are on this letter, we have over 100 on our current piece. If we can do things like that, and sitting beside each other and taking away whatever negativity is out there, and there's a lot of it, but to be able to go back home then and say, this is something we were able to accomplish together, and I think all of you feel the same way. Nobody accomplishes anything by themselves. It's always a collective effort. But in order to have a collective effort, you have to have a collective understanding. You have to have a collective goal in order to get there. What you all do is incredible. We're rebuilding America. The America that is so in people's memories, and you go to movies that are situated in different times, you say, God, wasn't that a great place to grow up? I can tell you that the town I grew up in and left in 1966 to go to South Bend was incredibly beautiful. Some of my friends went to college, and then went someplace else. High school reunions. People would come back home, and you know the first question they'd ask me? What happened? What happened? Because people didn't have the ability to do what they needed to do to build a strong home. So we can do it through policy, but we really need, and I would hope that we go through all this exercise, and you're all here for the same reason, that we can understand this takes a team. This takes a team. Your ability to talk to whomever it is that is your representative is key. It's really important to let them know. So when Johnny and I started this thing, and working across the aisle, Todd Young, who I sat beside in Ways and Means, when we started to look at this, the idea was, what can we build that actually is something that we can sell, that we can take to market, that we can show the return on this investment is much greater than you can possibly imagine. And it's not just in dollars. It's not just in dollars. I think the most important investment we can make today is making sure nuclear families can remain nuclear families, and that children can grow up with parents that are there for them every night, that play catch with them in the backyard, that watch TV with them, They go through all these things. My wife and I have been very blessed. We have 4 children. We have 10 grandchildren. And from time to time, they call me. And it's usually, hey, Grandpa. And I go, yeah, how much? It's nice to hear from you, but what is it that you need? And I was sharing with Elise as we came down the steps. I've watched this movie, Elf. Have you ever seen this movie, Elf? Okay. So my grandson, Charles, sits with me, and we're watching this, and he goes, Grandpa. I said, yeah, Charles was. He said, this guy is so annoying. And I said, come sit with me. I'll take you someplace every day that you're going to find a lot of people that are really annoying. Really annoying. But when we get together and we talk about what's the most important, I think if I were to ask anybody, people ask me about winning, and they said, yeah, it's really important that you win. And I said, you know what, winning is okay, but it's not everything. And they say, well, what's your opinion on it? I said, losing. Losing. If you ask people in your lifetime, if you're to sit down and think about whatever happened to you one day that you remember, you know what it usually is? The day my mother died, the day my father died, the day my sister died, the times my friends died. People never talk about winning when you talk about what life is really about. And the reason I bring it up is losing. We cannot continue to lose nuclear families and expect this country in the future to go forward. And I would rather talk about it not as a country, but as a nation, because we're talking about people now. We're not talking about some geographic thing that's painted light green or light pink or whatever. I think Canada was always kind of light pink, and Mexico was yellow, and we were in the middle. But it's the understanding that we don't have to lose. We don't have to lose the most valuable asset that we have. 75% of our population represent us. 25% represents young people. 25% of our population is going to be responsible for 100% of our success going into the future. The most valuable asset we have are our sons and daughters, and the ability for them to grow up in a community, get up in the morning, leave home, go to school, come back at night to home, have dinner, and share time with families. If we cannot bring together the nuclear family, we will not be able to succeed in the future. The world is in the opposite situation. Everything is divide, 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 divide. China is really now starting to understand that one child doesn't make sense for the future, a one-child policy. My wife was 1 of 9, I'm 1 of 5, and I never really thought about it. And I'm kind of, just so you understand this, my Aunt Joanne and Uncle Jerry had 13. And that was kind of the Irish thing back then. And it had nothing to do with Irish whiskey, by the way, because that sometimes can influence after our activities. But I can remember always taking for granted about Uncle there. I look at all their kids, all those McTies all lined up, and big ones and little ones and all over the place. I never realized the importance of it until I got married. And Vicki said to me, she goes, you're not going to believe this. I said, what's wrong? She goes, we're expecting. And I said, oh, are you kidding me? That's fabulous. Going through that 9 months with her was fabulous. But then when I went to my Uncle Jerry's, I thought, oh my God, they did this 13 times. How in the heck how do you feed them? How do you clothe them? And it was funny because watch them, they would look like little ducks when they went to Mass. There was Uncle Jerry, Aunt Joanne, and all these little people following them into Mass. And I thought, that was such a great accomplishment. But again, I want to stick with this, and I do get off track on this because I think too often we're reading statistics, and we're not looking at the most important statistic. How do we make it possible? How do you all make it possible? How do you navigate this? If we can do something with tax policy, right? When I look at this, what are we encouraging people to do? We're encouraging them through tax policy to make the investment. So you're not on your own. You're not on your own. And I think we realize that if we're going to have a strong America, if we're going to have strong cities, if we're going to have strong towns, if we're going to have strong children, then it's up to us to make sure they can grow up in an environment that encourages that whole nuclear family. This is so critical. And when Elise and I were talking about E.T., I said, just think about the one mission that E.T. was on. He always wanted to get home. So all the other stuff we talk about, all the policy, all the math, all the dollars, all of that is directed in one way, to make sure people have a home to go home to. So if you watch now, I watched it at Thanksgiving, which is my favorite holiday because it has nothing to do with, oh my God, I got to run out and get this certain toy that's not available anywhere. And some of you have been through it. Cabbage Patch Dolls, ever say, it was the most ugly thing in the world, but they were sold out. And if anybody had a child that looked like that, you wouldn't dress them up and take them out. But you go through that, but then you realize, I'm serious about this. The best part of everything, of everybody's day, is going home. It's the one place you can go and feel safe and feel sound and be able to sit in that easy chair or lay down in that bed or read a book to a child or play with a child in a game that you can't possibly win because they're so much more advanced than you are. And they always tell me, Grandpa, this is so easy. I said, for you, but not for me, because that's not the world I grew up in. But I just want to thank you for what you're doing. And you all come together, come to Washington, D.C., which is a very expensive place to come. So I live with 5 of my grandkids. And it's funny, every night I go home, and especially, I give them $50 a month. The banker is Charles, the same guy that said this guy's annoying. His sisters borrow money from him all the time. But they have to pay it back. So usually when I talk to them, I say, okay, who has any money left from the money I gave you last month? It's always Charles, and Charles has more than $50. He said, Grandpa, this is what I lent to my sisters, but I did charge them interest because you told me that's what I should do. And so his sisters go, well, there's no place else for us to borrow money, so we have to go to Charles. So a 9-year-old is controlling their future, which is, I feel like that sometimes when I sit on the house floor. We need to get that 9-year-old in because he's not looking at anything else other than success and making sure people have something. All the bills we're going to pass, everything that we're trying to do, it is incredibly important for you to support them. Please pick up the phone, give them a call. I admire you all for coming to Washington. I had never been here until I got elected. Because I went to the Catholic school, and the public school, once a year we go down to D.C., but the Catholic school didn't go. And that wasn't, they weren't saying because you're Catholic you can't go. It's just they didn't have the funds to get a bus to put you on. And so I had friends that used to talk about D.C. all the time, and they'd show me pictures of them from the time they were here to they were here to they were here. And I say, I can't wait to see that place. And now I see it all the time. But it usually is from a very small thing. It's from the house floor or our office or around that very small area. The most important thing is you being involved. And I said earlier, in life, people, please don't think that winning is the most thing. Winning is the byproduct of not wanting to lose. It's how ingrained are you? How focused are you in what is it that lies in front of me that is the obstacle that I have to get through to make sure I don't lose anymore? I think we've lost too much as a culture. I think we've lost too much in nuclear families. I think we've come up with policies that destroy the nuclear family, and unless you are a single parent trying to raise a child, you don't qualify. And we have people who don't do things because of that penalty. I would just encourage you when you talk to us the way we need to be talked to. I think too often I'm running out of time, and I'm thinking you guys are saying, okay, fine, when's this guy going to quit? Talk to the people who represent you the way they need to be talked to. And if anybody gets upset when you deliver that message, the best thing to answer is, well, what I'm really concerned, I don't think you understand that this policy is so important. And if you're looking to get reelected, I would want to be able to go into a town and show people where the investment went and how it plussed up the town, but more importantly than anything else, how did it build that nuclear family? Because that's what it's about in America. There's no other place in the world. There's no other place in the world. And people talk to me about how bad it is here, and I said, that's interesting. Where are you going to go? What do you have in your mind? And they said, well, you're trying to be funny. I said, I'm not trying to be funny at all. Where else are you going to go? What we have to continue to do is this legislation is all about helping people get to a home. So E.T. finally made it home. I just want to make sure that every place that we represent, those people have a place to go home to, and that future generations can look back on growing up and very fondly talk about their home. And no matter where they go, they always come home. They always come home. We have to make sure that more people have that opportunity and make sure that the homes they live in are things that they can be proud in, and that they actually stay engaged with it and they stay on top of it. But it's math. It's math. And the math is, please work. We have 100 co-sponsors, this piece of legislation. We need more. That's math. That's math. The win takes place with the staff. Members don't talk about these issues one-on-one. They just don't. They may say, hey, I need you on my bill. Here's the Palm card. Read it. let me know if you can be on it. Staff talks to staff. Staff comes back to you and say, this is something that's really good. When Elise was working on this, I just said, this is the best thing we can do right now. John's on it, Larson's on it, Todd's on it. We have people who are joined on, and we have 100 now. If you can, whoever it is that is representing you from wherever you are, talk to that person and tell them how important it is. Especially now, we can get things done. For the first year here, we're going to be able to get some things done because there's not an election coming up next November. But it really is critical. We have to be able right now to throw everything out and talk about nothing but the people we represent and what's in their best interest. It does not have to be in the best interest of the representative. It has to be in the best interest of 750,000 people that send you to do good policy. So I want to thank you all for being here. I mean, it is, you know, you come to D.C. and it's kind of fascinating. You look at everything and I say, God, this is some of the most beautiful architecture I've ever seen. I've been other places. Nobody quite matches up with us. And so, and I'm going to end on this. We have a lot of students that come in to visit. And so the question when you ask them, I want you to think about it, I tell them, so you came in to see me today and we're in Longworth. Do you know, this is the only place in the world where you can walk into a government office and know that every step you trod on, every door you go through, every window you look out of, every building belongs to you. And you are the future for this. And it's kind of stunning because they said, well, I thought it belonged to you. I said, no, I'm here representing 750,000 people back in Western Pennsylvania. It belongs to the people. And I really wish the people would start to understand, get away from the politics and stick on the policy and talk to your reps and make sure they understand how critical it is, not just to you, but to the future. If we do not rebuild, if we do not establish the fact that the home is the most important place to raise children, we lose the future. So I told you before, it's about not liking to lose. As I told you, the byproduct of that is you'll win. America will win. Our families will win. And as we step away and when it's finally time for us to walk out of office, whatever it is, we got something done that was important for everybody. Not for a party, but for the people. So, hey, listen, God bless you. Please. And I'm not trying to be corny. Please, when you have the chance, go back home. Go back home, have a chance to visit. And sometimes it's really far away from where you are now. It is incredibly important that you go back, but it's also incredibly important. This is the last time I said, talk to the people who ran for office and got elected because they got at least one more vote than whoever it is they were running against. But now their responsibility is not about getting reelected. Their responsibility is getting good policy done that takes care of the people who put them in office. That's really what it's all about. We need to get away from singular people thinking that they're the most important person there. I don't know that any of them have more than one vote. There are people that think they do. And too often, I'm on steering committee. One of the first things when the people come that want to be on these things, you know what they bring? How much money I've raised. I said, well, that's nice, but please, I don't need to see it. Give me your resume. I want to know what you did before, and I want to know how you're going to fit in the committee that you're going into. If it's because you think you can raise more money out of being there, you're not the guy or girl I want to see. I want to know what you can bring, the value that you can bring to the people that you represent. So you guys are doing the same thing. Okay, so let's make sure we stay on track. Thank you all. God bless. Have a great Christmas, holiday season, fabulous. Thank you so much.